I had my students at Rutgers University doing investigations of Amazon, and one of the things Amazon at one point was requiring their employees to line up and be searched on the way out. And of course, they operate in these huge warehouses, so that it would take the workers sometimes half an hour to get out of work while they waited online to be searched on the way out the door.
Wow.
They went to court, and the Supreme Court upheld in a decision that, because the workers wanted to be paid, they said, if you're requiring us to wait online to be searched on the way out, pay us for that time. The Supreme Court said no, that you're not required to pay an employee once they're off, even if it's a requirement to search them. So, I mean, you've got this situation of this, it is virtual slavery in a lot of these huge warehouses that people never see, because we just get our Amazon Prime and we don't care how it comes to us, and unless we open up what's going on in a lot of these places. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, I think, I guess this is what the film kind of addresses, is that we might know something, like we'll hear that piece of information, but we hear that piece of information, what can we do with it, right? And we're like, okay, that's something I can't do anything about, and we file it away. And it's not apathy. It's, it's the fact that we don't have the movements that are able to, or we don't have them big enough yet. The movements that are able to address this, movements that are actually confronting capital by withholding labor. Those are the things that we need. And for too long, the left has gone away from class struggle. Like, we've gone away from class struggle in favor of spectacle, and hidden in the arts and academia. So a lot of our biggest fights are sometimes about not what we're saying, but how we're saying it. And I agree, how we're saying things are important. It means, though, that we have to look at how the working class is talking and what they really mean, as opposed to just trying to adjust how people are talking and making a movement around things that we can do something about. Because then people have a real choice of what they want to get involved in. People, it's not that people don't hear that story, for instance, and think it's ridiculous, but even me, I'm sitting here like, okay, is this something I can do? Let me move on from this. Like, what, throwing up my hands. And so I think that people are looking for new ways to do things. And I think that it's time for us to have new, and I've been on this show saying this before, so new radical, militant in the sense that they keep out scabs, radical and militant in the sense that they break the existing labor laws, and have these new radical and militant labor movements. And, that doesn't necessarily mean the existing unions, but if they want to come along and up the ante, that's great. But there's only 7% of, something like 7% of the U.S. workforce is unionized. And some of that has to do with some of the laws that have been enacted since the 40s, and also some of the anti-communist stuff. But, the Taft-Hartley laws make it so you can't do solidarity strikes. And the reason why they make it so you can't do solidarity strikes is because they're effective. And so we need a labor movement that's going to break those laws, because as we see, the laws that are existing are going to make the current ways of organizing unions much harder. So, and this is almost also a call out to folks that consider themselves radicals. Like, we're willing to go to jail for statements sometimes, for demonstrations, and which is good. But maybe if we were part of leading this kind of new radical labor movement, we'd go to jail for breaking the laws that bring people hikes in wages, that then also make for a movement that could handle other social justice issues with strikes.
How does Sorry to Bother You fit into that picture of organizing? I mean, it must be very interesting for you as a well-known anti-capitalist artist and organizer. Communist Marxist.
I don't know, Marx, didn't he say something like, I myself am not a Marxist? So
to now you have
yes.
Sorry to Bother You, which is, this breakout film, to navigate this world of a film that is a work of art, a political statement, but also almost a consumer product. And you must be negotiating nonstop, dealing with this very successful film in a capitalist world.
Yeah, I mean, it's never been my mission to create a separate, safer capitalist model, because that's what it would be doing, It's like, let's create this other distribution network, whatever, which, if you're operating under capitalism, ends up being just a baby capitalist model that is maybe not as effective as the ones that exist. So it is, I wasn't there, but I believe how even the Communist Manifesto got out was that the books were distributed, these books are sold. So even Marx sold books, right? So, and it wasn't because he was like, I need to create something inside of capitalism that shows this model. I mean, we've been seeing that for a long time. I mean, the U.S. has had socialist communes since the 1800s. And as artists too, we give ourselves that out. Like, I'm creating a model, and that other people can emulate. And it's really just a cop out, because it's harder to organize people and get them to get involved in a movement. It's easier to find other people that already agree with you and then do that thing. And
what was it like working with the Oakland cops? You were a fierce critic of police officers, but in your film, you must have had to do a lot of...
Yeah, you have to, there was a lot of degrees of separation, but so that I didn't actually have to, and I think they know who I am, so they're just kind of like not talking to me. But yeah, you have to get a permit, right, in order to do that. So we have locations managers for that and stuff like that. Yeah, that's the thing. Like, even if you were to create a collective bakery, you're going to have to get a permit and all sorts of things with the cops. So it's that's just a level of operation.
I wanted to ask you in terms of both spectacle and also the movement, figuring out ways to move forward. A lot of the folks who have been involved in activist movement over the years then ended up going into, especially after the Bernie Sanders phenomenon, electoral politics. We're seeing many more so-called progressives or radicals getting elected to office. What do you think about that route as a means of being able to affect social change?
Well, here's what I think. I think inarguably, the two biggest reforms under capitalism in the 20th century might be the New Deal and the Civil Rights Bill, right? And how did we get either of them? Was it by electing the right person, or was it by having a movement that was able to disrupt? And let me be very clear about what I mean by disrupt. In the 20s and 30s in the United States, it's been said that there were 1 million card-carrying communists. And at the same time, we had places like Alabama, Utah, Montana, Oklahoma, where there were, for instance, mining strikes that were going on. And in places like Alabama, there were even like armed conflicts with the miners and private security. In the Midwest at that same time, during that same era, you had people occupying and shutting down factories. On the West Coast during that same era, you had the longshoremen creating their union, and of a bunch of workers that were thought of as like lower skill than we think of fast food workers right now, who fought against, militias state militias in order to create their union. That's happening at the same time. During that same time, somewhat unrelated, pretty unrelated, there was a thing called the Bonus March, where World War I veterans marched on the White House for their bonus checks in large numbers, and many thought to be carrying arms. Revolutions happening around the world. In that milieu is where we got the New Deal. It wasn't because the radicals and progressives band together and were like, we need to be putting all our energy into electing FDR. They made that happen. Now, so that's not to say don't get somebody in office, but what that does do, though, when you're doing that, it's a question of where are we putting our resources? Where are we putting our time? Where we put, what happens is movements get subverted because right now there's only so much time and energy, and the first people to act are going to be the ones that we need. And if everybody's putting their time into the electoral side, we're going to get caught in this loop where you get an elected official in there, and they're not able to do much because there's not the movement to do things. We need to get to the level where we can shut down industry and that we can go straight to the puppet masters. Now, if we have that going on and somebody wants to get in office that can better aid those movements, but even any progressive or candidate out there will tell you that if you don't have a movement going on, it's not a lot they could do. Even on a low level like Oakland politics, you had like Ron Dellums get elected mayor. Great dude. Didn't really do much at all. And what he kept saying was, I can't do anything if there's not a movement that allows it to happen. And so I think that electoral politics is the easy way out. And I think it's I think it's part of the sidetracking that we've been having by the left has not been willing to engage in class struggle for a long time. And we've left it up to liberals. We've left union organizing up to liberals. And we've made, not just union organized, but we've made our movements devoid of the analysis that says that shows where the power point in capitalism for us is. And so for me, it's not a matter of can that work? Maybe it could, but it's not going to work if we don't have a real movement. And it's going to get us sucked into the war of inches. Think about it like this. Really, you end up talking about getting folks to vote. And right now, because of everything that we've gotten into, we get focused on the Trump era, and we've got the Democrats going way to the right because of figuring out how do we get Trump out. So people are like supporting the CIA, supporting the FBI, and doing it fervently. Right? So and they're like, well, that's just because we need to get Trump out. But then where does that leave you afterward? And it's part of this game. It's part of this thing. Where we are with immigration. Immigration rights activists were complaining way before Trump was in about the policies that the Obama administration put in. But
they call them the deporter-in-chief. He deported millions and millions and millions.
And so where we are with Trump is part of just that. It's another few steps on the staircase that has been being built the whole time by playing this game of inches. I think that things are so drastic right now that we gotta reset. And it's only since the 60s that radicals have been thinking about like elections as the way, and it's very connected with, with the New Left stopping organizing labor and focusing on students. All of a sudden in the 60s, you heard the students are the revolution. It was not historically accurate. Not based on any other revolutions, except for maybe there was at the same time the Cultural Revolution in China. But other than that, wasn't historically accurate, and there was a focus on students and spectacle that has led and has led to like people not knowing what to do and basically saying, well, all I'm going to do is electoral politics.